All right, it's 12:02 here on the East Coast. Welcome, everybody. This is Jim Morenz of the XchangeCore team, and want to welcome you to today's webinar, which is a hands-on training for the XchangeCore connector for ArcGIS Online. This is part two of a focus on how XchangeCore works with geospatial tools. Last time we saw how to get information out of XchangeCore, all the different ways that and queries that you can provide to narrow the information that you have. And this time we're going to look at how you get information from ArcGIS Online and put it into XchangeCore, and how actually to create a two-way exchange between ArcGIS Online and XchangeCore. To get started, let's see who's on the call. We, as a community, like to give people a chance to say hello to each other. So who do we have on out west of the Rockies?
We have Captain Ricks from the California Military Department on.
Oh, welcome. Glad you could call in today.
Bill Bailey.
Good morning, Jim. I'm sorry, go ahead.
This
is Jonathan Colwell.
John Petter. I'm with Esri.
Great. Good to meet you, and glad you could join in. Who else out on the West Coast?
Jonathan Colwell, FEMA Region 9.
Hello, Jonathan. Glad you could join in.
Ann Millington, Department of Public Health.
Oh, Ann, great to hear from you. How you been?
Just fine, thank you.
Good.
Glad to be here.
Maggie Ortiz, ERI.
Hello, Maggie. All right, how about anybody west of the Mississippi? Or anyone anywhere who would like to say hello to their colleagues?
Rich Van Dame, FEMA.
Hello, Rich.
Hi, George Davis, Latitude Geographics in New York.
Oh, George, great to hear from you.
How you doing, Jim?
Good.
Alexis Giesiker, State of Missouri.
Hello, Alexis. I think a first-time caller, perhaps.
B.R. Carson with Henrico, Virginia.
Hi, B.R.
Hi, Jim.
Phil Strauss, FEMA Region 4.
Hello, Phil. Glad you could call in.
Jared Dunbar, Henrico County, Virginia.
Oh, welcome. All right. Pretty good group. Many more people on the phone than said hello, but that's the way it always is. Everybody is welcome to listen, and then eventually we find the people who are ready to stand up and share things, which is what we're all here about. Since XchangeCore is a community of willing participants and interested in seeing how all of you are using your tools and how XchangeCore can help improve the exchange of information among those various tools. Today we're focusing on ArcGIS Online, clearly the most popular of all of the common operating pictures or situational awareness geospatial visualization tools. And today we're taking a look at the ArcGIS Online connector. And we're going to do this real live demo. I actually have at least one person out there who's going to be playing along as we go and pushing some information in as well. And we're going to look at how things connect, how everything works together, and then we're going to see how there are different layers of detail that you can exchange. You can take an entire ArcGIS Online web map, share it out with everybody who is part of your XchangeCore community. Layers, select individual layers. Go off and select individual features, those that are points and areas, those that are built around buffers, or even a buffer right around the incident. How we take information from XchangeCore, which is a variety of sources, and move it into the My Content portion of ArcGIS Online, so you can use it long into the future. And then finally, how features actually are used to create incidents. You've got a dam out there, well, you don't have to sit down and type in all the information about the dam. If it starts to overtop, you can say, I have the dam in my GIS. I can now just click on that, give it a name, and it becomes part of the XchangeCore incident community that is pushed out there. So we're going to take a look at all that, and then at the end have a little bit of time left over for anybody to talk about anything that you want to. So let's get started with a high-level view. You've got lots of different organizations, military, emergency management, private sector, and all of them produce lots and lots of information. Today we're focusing on the geospatial kind of information. That information comes out of all their individual systems, goes into XchangeCore, where it is turned into common operational data, where we merge web services and non-web services, and geospatial and non-geospatial, put that common operational data into content packages that then are exposed back out, as we'll see today, to GIS and other tools and technologies that will allow us to be able to move that information back into all those organizations, improve it, create it, and push it back out again. So it's a constant flow, two-way exchange from organizations through XchangeCore to other organizations, through XchangeCore back to the organizations again. That's the high-level view of what we're doing. Today we're focusing on geospatial. I want to give you a little bit of background because there are some components that we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at ArcGIS Online, we're going to look at the connector, and then we're going to look at other applications that are going to be using that information. So ArcGIS Online Web Map is the starting point. A web map is an accumulation of different components. It consists of layers of geospatial data. Here you see this one. We've got prisons and airports and dams and wastewater treatment facilities and some census information. All those things lay on top of a base map, that topographic item that you have down at the bottom. That's the beginning. That's my map picture, as it were. And then I lay all this other information on top of it to form a map that I care about, something that I want to have. And that's the point at which you turn it into a web map. And you do that simply by saving this inside of ArcGIS Online. And you're going to give it a name. So your web map name is going to go here. From that point on, you have a picture of what's going on, a picture of the infrastructure layers, a picture of actions that are happening. That is your view of this particular incident, emergency, analysis plan. They're used for many, many different things. But this is the starting point, is ArcGIS Online, lots of different layers. You formulate exactly what you want to have, save it, it becomes a web map. Then that web map is where the second piece of all this comes in, and that is the ArcGIS Online connector to XchangeCore. And the connector basically wraps around the web map, uses all the layers that are associated with it. So if we look at this illustration, my little cloud there is pointing you to that same web map that we saw earlier. The yellow, though, is the wrapper for that. And the wrapper is what's called an application template. Lots of people are building these. This application template is designed to connect that web map and all the information that's in it to XchangeCore. And it does that by inheriting all the features of the web map and adding additional features. So the web map is what decides whether you want to edit. When you set up your web map, you can say people can edit this or they can't edit that. If they can edit it, then you can edit it in the connector. Printing it, all the different layers that are there get inherited by the connector. The tools to measure things, they all remain in the connector. You can go off and search things just like you had in the connector. The legend over on the left-hand side is the legend that is inherited from your web map, but now presented as part of the connector. The connector itself is a series of little pop-up windows, and we'll be looking at those a lot as we go along, and it's illustrated over there on the right-hand side by that big arrow saying XchangeCore Connector. And that is the essence of what we have. Your web map, this connector laying on top of it, and then the ability to have other applications take the information out of XchangeCore that you have given them permission to use and be able to provide it elsewhere. So let's see how it works. First of all, XchangeCore is incident-centric. Nothing exists in XchangeCore without an incident. So all those geospatial layers, all your schools and hospitals and nursing homes and flood zones and all that, they sit over there, they're permanent. Think of that as sort of your static layers of information. Where XchangeCore matters when there are incidents. And where do incidents happen? Well, they happen in WebEOC sometimes, and other incident, E-Team, other incident management software, Knowledge Center, there are many of them out there. It happens a lot in public safety applications, dispatch applications. And actually, when we look at the data in a little bit live, you're going to see live information coming out of the state of Delaware, the state of New Jersey, Richmond, Virginia, all of them pulling information out of their dispatch systems through a variety of different connections that allow us to be able to drive information into XchangeCore that may be an incident of interest. Earthquake sensor reading is another connection that goes into XchangeCore. Mobile apps, all those things are potential sources of incidents. And that's what kicks off the XchangeCore life. What we're going to do now, though, is marry that information with the geospatial information. Because when those incidents occur, by rules, some of them go in and become an XchangeCore incident. When they do that, they get transformed from all those different formats that are out there into a NIEM, National Information Exchange Model, a NIEM standard incident format. And what that allows us to do then is to share that standard format out with other people. What happens as soon as that incident comes in is that a couple things are done. The first one is an incident work product is created. That answers the essential element of information, the EEI question, what is it? Absolutely fundamental beginning of everything that exists. It also automatically creates a map context work product, which answers the essential element of information, the EEI, where is it? This represents two different standards that we have here. The first one, the incident work product, is built around the NIEM incident standard that exists. The map context product is built around the Open Geospatial Consortium standard for describing map layers. So what we have are the marriage of two different standards, one focused on incident management, one focused on geospatial. Those two are both incorporated inside of XchangeCore. And when one of those incidents from the right-hand side hits XchangeCore, both of those things are created and associated. And for those of you who have been around for a while, you know our tree of knowledge that begins with the incident and adds on to it information about sensors and resources and tasking and operating procedures, and most importantly, it seems to many, the location information, the map context. So what we have are these two work products, and there are other work products in XchangeCore, as those of you who have been listening for a while know, but these are the two we're going to focus on today, is the incident work product, map context work product, and their association, which allows us to then take that incident work product and the XchangeCore connector brings that incident information in. That's the first flow of information that happens. Got incidents, XchangeCore creates the work product, and is available inside of ArcGIS Online. But then the key consideration today in this focus is that the connector then provides map data that goes into the map context work product and then becomes consumable, again if you give them permissions, consumable by all sorts of different applications. And we're going to see how this works when we take a look at it, because one of the first things you're going to say is, gee, I have a WebEOC, I don't think it can read ArcGIS information. Well, you're absolutely right. You are only going to perhaps see a fraction of the information from that map into the WebEOC. you're only going to see a fraction of the information coming back into dispatch. You're going to see certain kinds of information that will easily go into Google Earth, and others that will go into other applications in this mobile application there. The end user application is going to vary widely in how they can use the data that is exposed out of your ArcGIS Online. That's an important task for those end user application developers. Our focus is on XchangeCore to make certain that all of them have that data exposed to them, that when you allow them, they can consume that information. How they present it to you is a challenge for them, because not everybody's prepared to do that right now because it's never been available before. Because what you see represented here are 5 former silos of information. ArcGIS Online talks to ArcGIS Online by and large. WebEOC talks to WebEOC by and large. Those silos of information are what we're breaking down with XchangeCore. And this is how it works. This is the process for doing it. Because one element that's absolutely critical to understand is that sometimes ArcGIS Onlines don't easily talk to each other. And they certainly don't talk to each other when it's in the context of the associated data from one incident and the mapping associated with that particular incident. So it's important to recognize that in this process, you're creating a mechanism for an ArcGIS Online, that's in organization A, to share information with organization B that they don't have an easy exchange in place to do so. So the adapter does a couple of other things, and as we move towards the time, we may end up holding these off to next week, but we'll see. The other task is that ArcGIS Online can bring in map data from other geospatial data sources. It can bring in information that has been posted by somebody into that map context and then view that information as part of ArcGIS Online. So that second flow, we came from the right to the left, we went to the left to the right, now we're coming from the right to the left again. And then the other big component is that ArcGIS Online can create incidents that end up, no matter what you started with, you may start with a, as we're going to see here, probably a waste treatment facility or something like that, that looks nothing like an incident, but when there's an accident there, all that information gets turned into the NEAM standard incident format, which means it becomes immediately consumable by all the connected applications. And suddenly everybody knows that we have an incident going on at that dam or waste treatment facility or airport or whatever it is that started out as part of your GIS static information, infrastructure information, and becomes dynamic when something happens there. So that's the multiple processes that take place with the ArcGIS Online connector. What we're going to do today, we're going to turn it on live with all the jeopardy that's always associated with doing a live demo, but love those. We're going to connect XchangeCore with ArcGIS Online, going to exchange some web maps so everybody can say, okay, here's the big picture. And then that'll narrow down and say, all right, I just don't want to exchange this big picture. I just want to exchange a few layers. We'll exchange those. I'm going to exchange some selected features, some individual points, or some things that are in polygons or buffered. Then, if we have time, we'll take a look at moving this data back into my content and creating incidents with it. So that's our task for today. And we're going to do that, as I say, by taking a look at the various components. And posted up on the XchangeCore website in the Documents and Training section is this online training guide. I consider it sort of my little notepad there that sits right up on the screen so that I can work my way through it. If any of you have an ArcGIS Online and want to follow along with this, it shows you exactly how to get into it and begin participating. So let's come in here and take a look at the first thing. The first thing is the web map, and we talked about web maps, and here's a web map. Built this web map. It's the XchangeCore connector for training web map, and it's an ArcGIS online web map. You got all these things. I can turn off dams if I want to turn off dams, or I can, what do we have here? Wastewater treatment plants, those things go on and off. So it's a base map, multiple layers that you see over here on the left-hand side. And the key is that when I save this, it produced for me this unique identifier. Begins with a 9, ends with an A. The rest of it you don't have to worry about. What you do is take the URL that appears here, this one, in blue, and you replace everything after the web map equals with this web map equals this number. That's how you activate and you bring in the wrapper for that that web map that we talked about earlier. That mapper being, or the wrapper being, the XchangeCore connector. So you'll be asked for credentials when you do that, and what I'm going to do is come on in, and we're going to connect now to XchangeCore. So having done that, I'm going to come over here to my next little spot here, and this is now the connector. You'll see that same, begins with a 9, ends with an A. There's the URL at the beginning that says bring me my connector and make it work with this particular map. What it's done is come up here to my ArcGIS Online. I'm asked to authenticate myself to that. And when I do so, I now have the connector, all those things that you formerly saw in yellow, built around here, my editor, my printing, my layers, all associated with that same web map that we were just looking at. A couple of things here that are different. I turn the layers on and off here in this pull-down map, and I can do those like that, just to let you see that it's live and working. The set of your legend over here happens. If some of these features are editable, it does come up and say edit, and I can then go off and do some editing associated with that. We won't spend any time on that. That's an ArcGIS Online feature. So what we did, if you're following over here, we took that URL, pasted it in, and we now have the connector. Now we want to connect into XchangeCore. And to do that, I click on the little XchangeCore icon over there, and it comes up, and this is where you're going to put your XchangeCore URL. It retains the last one that you used here, so you don't have to remember it all the time. And since I may have used this earlier, if I fetch this information, it's going to come up to me for the username and password to get into that XchangeCore. So that didn't do that here because I had set this up in advance. But basically, as you see over here, click on Fetch, it asks for your credentials, and then you see the incidents. Now, this is what's sitting inside of XchangeCore right now. You got all these different things, and I mentioned that some of them are ones that are live information. If I want to go over here, there's back here somewhere in New York on I-81, there's an accident happening. As soon as I click on these, I go to that location. So we're somewhere up here in upstate New York because that's one of the components that we have. If we want to come in there, we had some folks from Richmond and Henrico County. When we come in there, those are incidents that are something happening at the cross street. So each one of those is part of what you're able to do inside of XchangeCore. What I've done is create a training event. And if I click on that now, it's going to take me out here to California where I happen to have some data that we're going to be using today. And that data, this training event, is part of our ability to begin to share information. And let's go on to the next page of my little guide over here. We just did the clicking on any event, and you saw that go back and forth. So what I want to do now is paint this scenario. I'm sitting here, there's an incident going on. I've built all these different layers that are of value to people, and it's all sitting there on my ArcGIS Online. There are going to be some other people who are part of my organization, ArcGIS Online, who I can shout at or send them an email and say, go in, take a look at this information. But I got other agencies. I've got local governments. I've got state governments. I've got federal governments. I want to let them know they're an XchangeCore user. They're connected to, their applications are connected to XchangeCore. I want to let them know that this is what I'm looking at right now. So, what I'm going to do is select this training incident over there, and over here on the right-hand side, and you saw that we just centered on that incident. I'm going to click the map button over here. And this map button then is going to say to me, I understand you want to share a map. Well, if you look under this URL here, this is exactly the same URL that I have up here. And if I have set this web map up to be shared, it's going to be published. This link to it is going to be published as part of XchangeCore related to this specific incident. So remember that little tree there where we were associating geospatial information and information about an incident. That's what we're doing right here. I can edit these names, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this map title and I'm going to call this First Web Map Shared, just so that we're able to, actually I'm going to do that in all caps. Let me make all my things in here all caps so they're quick to find and see. First map shared by Jim. All right? And all I do is submit that. By submitting it, it pops back and it tells me, okay, this has been successfully added to the XchangeCore that I'm dealing with. And I now have created an association between this web map and that training event. What we're going to do now is I'm going to pass control over to Phil Balin. And Phil's out there, and let's go to Phil. Okay, presenter, Phil Balin. There you are. Because I just want to illustrate that there is somebody out there who's using this currently, and if any of you have jumped in here and decided to play along, you may be adding something here as well. But here's Phil's screen. Phil has his own event that's taking place and his own map. And Phil, you want to describe what we have here and then go ahead and share that map with us?
Right. Welcome. This is Phil Balin in Walnut Creek in the Bay Area. And yesterday I created a map for a pandemic exercise that we did in the town of El Cerrito. And I've kind of cannibalized it for today's presentation. But as you can see, here's my own personal map with my own information coming from actually several different agencies. And the URL for the map here I've simply copied in, as Jim said, into the XchangeCore wrapper, and there it is. And then what I've done is just shown you here, and now that it's been wrapped up, several of the layers coming from multiple agencies, faults from the California Geologic Survey, hospitals from our state public health. I have our own editable layer for roadblocks, and then an Esri layer of U.S. hazardous waste sites. So this is what you're looking at here, except that I've moved ourselves up to our last exercise area up in Eureka, a couple hundred miles north of us, that we beat upon on a tsunami exercise where we have a bunch of information that you can see. So that's what you're looking at here. Jim?
Yeah, now what Phil's going to do, you see he selected that training event, and you see the blue X there, so he's centered on that. And if you go up to the map, Phil, and hit the map, and then once you edit that to make it Phil's map or whatever. And submit that. And that's successfully added from Phil. So I'm going to take control back now, because we've now got what we're doing is building How do I take that back? Right, rats. You can control the shared content. Oh, no, I don't want shared content. Oh, rats. Sorry, folks. Jeez. Return to meeting when. Okay. Thank you, whoever did that for me. All right. So, we saw I added my map, Phil added his map, and let's go off here to Google Earth. And Google Earth is set up to connect to that event, that XchangeCore that we have created over there. And you see lots of the things back here. You know, there's some of the Richmond things and all the other components. So you see lots of live data that's taking place on this connection here. What I'm going to do is bring it over here, and we see the events that we had. And if I roll down here and find that training event, what I see is I've got the training event, there's the incident information, but there is this map view context, the map context that we've been talking about. If I click on it, inside of Google Earth, I now have this Open Geospatial Consortium standard map context that has this information in it. First of all, it's the first map shared by Jim, and there's a link to it. There's Phil's map, and there's a link to it. And if I come in there and I hit this, with a little bit of luck, I'm actually going to expose that ArcGIS Online map inside of Google Earth. And they're seeing exactly the same information that I saw before. Don't have an account. Ah, yes. Here we go. Authentication. You haven't agreed to share that with somebody? Let's not do all caps there. If you haven't agreed to share that with somebody, they're not going to be able to see it. So you have to have given them capability to be part of your organization. And if we bring this one up here, we've got that exact web map, all the information, same layers, everything else. Now, that's because Google Maps doesn't natively bring in ArcGIS information like this, but rather we're now taking that wrapper, being able to insert it into this Google Earth and be able to bring it in. So I, at least, as a Google Earth user, I'm now able to see the same map that you're seeing. So it's a first step. Is it the same as putting that URL into an email and mailing it out to everybody? Yes, it is. But what you've got is the authentication part, that security that we're always concerned about, as well as knowing that this is going to every organization that you've authorized to be able to see it. So I don't need to know people and organizations. I don't need to know that somebody read the email. I now know that inside of anybody whose native application is Google Earth, who is connected to XchangeCore, is going to be updated whenever this changes. Synchronized information going across all the different components so everybody can see it. And let's do, since my Google Earth is really funky, I'm going to try Phil's, see whether we can bring that one in here as well. And it's going to, Phil wants me to separately authenticate. And I hope I've done that. There it is, Phil's map. Although I'm using Google Earth, I now have access, and I'm only using Google Earth until it crashes here. While I'm using Google Earth, I can still reach out, gather that other information up, and be able to see it as part of the system that I'm trying to build for my own knowledge base. But I don't just want to see a map. I now want to get some information that I can do something with. And now you're going to start to see some of the examples of how we move different kinds of information back and forth, some of which you can view in current applications and others of which you can't. So what I'm going to do now is, we switched our page over here on the right. Let's clear off all that so we get a nice clear view down here. And that clear view goes off and refetches this, so I have current information. And my training event is right there. I'm going to select that. And then what I now want to do is, instead of sharing that whole map, I just want to share a layer. Just want to tell people this is where I can go to get that information. So I've got a layer button there. I click on the layer button. Now, what I see here are all the layers that are part of my web map here. And what I'm going to do is share, let's share wastewater treatment sites. Pick that. I get the same form. And now what I have up here, for those of you who want to see the inside of it, is a link to this layer from its location out there, the wastewater treatment site. It's coming out of a feature server, titles wastewater treatment plants. I'm going to call that, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make this Jim's wastewater. And I should have been doing that in all caps so I can notice it, so I will do training, so I'll be able to see that better. And I submit it. That's now getting submitted off to the XchangeCore. So that layer of information has now been exposed out to everybody who is going to be able to connect into XchangeCore. They'll see that ability to get that layer of information, but only have access to it if you've authorized that, if you've, in the parlance of ArcGIS Online, if you shared it to everyone rather than just people in the organization. So you're maintaining ultimate control over your data and who accesses it. So we've done that. Let's take a look, and let's come in here, and what I'm going to do is refresh this. This is the console that peeks into XchangeCore. You'll see we're set up here for that host 3 that we've been looking at. And just want to give you a different view of the information. This is the information right in the middle while it's sitting on XchangeCore. And you see we've got all those same incidents that we've been talking about this whole time. Lots of construction going on in a few places. And the one I want to look at is that training event. Now look at the training event, and here is the incident information about that. This is the NEAM standard incident format. And over here is the map view context that's been associated with it. Again, here's that tree of knowledge. Here's the my command structure that says who's in charge if somebody's adding information into that. Here's the OGC map context document that says where is it. And if I take a look at that, come in here, I'm going to see a couple of things down here. First of all, I've got that first map shared by Jim. This is sitting there in this document so everybody can get it. Here's Phil's map. Then, Phil's been out there actively working. He's added faults. So he took a layer of faults and put them into here, and there's Jim's wastewater training. Wastewater training, yes. So we've now built the components that Phil's sharing, I'm sharing, and we have all that to be able to see. Let's go back, something at our own peril, but let's go back, pull up the Google Earth, and what we're going to see is that connection to that core is now uploading over here on the left. We brought back 88 results there. If I come in here to the training event and the map context and I click on that, I've got Bill's faults and my wastewater. Now, these are, again, we're back to the data point. Really important that you understand that XchangeCore is about the data, and when those external applications get it, they do what they can with it. So, let's go back to being that Google Earth user. I'm going to take this wastewater training stuff, and I'm going to come in there, and I'm going to click on it. The first thing it's going to say to me is, I don't have any idea what you're talking about. I have no idea. I'm Google Earth. You just asked me to display an ArcGIS online set of data. Well, that's true, and here's the full ArcGIS or GIS REST services directory for it, so I can learn all sorts of stuff about that data. But most importantly, it tells me I can view it. So I can hit that, and I can come up here, and I was in I was in Google Earth just a little while ago, and I didn't know what to do with that data. I can at least see it. It's not perfect, but I can at least see it. And, as we'll see a little bit later, Bill can take this and be able to display it because his ArcGIS Online can display this layer of information. So, key point is, at the application level, they will do lots of different things with it. And what we are concerned about is making sure that we can get the data to all of them. So what I also have here, this is that Spot On Response mobile app that we see. And if I come in here and look at this training event, what I want to be able to do is let's hit this training event. And we're now going to see how we've dealt with that information differently. So you saw those 4 layers in Google Earth that I have to go in there and pull up and have all these funny little URL things. Different applications deal with things differently. Here we've got those components that are coming out of the Spot On Response tool. Here it makes it a little bit cooler, cleaner. Little blue lines down there. There's the first map, Phil's faults. There's the training. Still not going to be able to read that layer, but this tool does a little bit differently than the last one. If I click that URL, I come back to this set of layer information and can go off and be able to see that information just like I did previously. So it gives me the opportunity again to share the information. What we're going to do is be able to, as we drill down now further, be able to use that information in some of those external applications a little bit differently. So, layers. You can get the whole map there. You can get the individual layers there. Now what we want to do is move over to features. And in features, what I'm going to do is start out same way. Just click my clear all there and got my training event right there. So first thing I'm going to do is do the training event, and now I want to select a feature because I'm trying to narrow it down. Select the feature, and what I'm going to do is select hazardous waste sites. And those hazardous waste sites, my interest is going to be in finding, let's take a couple of them. Let's say I'm over here and I've heard something, so I'm going to click on the multiple. And I've got choices of single, multiple, and buffer, and we'll come back and do a buffer in a minute. And I highlight those. They pop up, bright yellow with the red outline for it. And those are now features that have been selected. Well, what do I want to do with those? Well, this is in a river valley maybe that I'm concerned about. I want to know all the hazardous waste sites in this river valley. And I want to share those out with everybody who's connected to XchangeCore and watching this training event. So with that, I click on Features, and it brings up that same kind of a form that we had before. And a couple things I want to point out. First of all, those of you who know a little bit about ArcGIS, we're scrolling here, there are the REST services, there's the waste sites, and now what we're getting are the object IDs. We're actually selected out the specific hazardous waste sites that we wanted to be able to see. And there are 2 choices now. There's a JSON and there's a KMZ or KML. When it is available you can output these as both a KML and a KMZ. If ArcGIS cannot do that, you only output it as a JSON. The ones that cannot be done are ones that are just feature services, coming out of a feature server. If you're working with a map server in ArcGIS, you can do a checkbox that says enable the KML output. We have a request in to ArcGIS Online to be able to enable the KML, KMZ output from feature services as well, and that's been floating around there for the last couple of updates, and something that we're hoping gets a little bit of attention. Because that then frees all of this data to go out into another format of Exchange. So what I want to do here, let's do first I'm going to do this one, and it's going to be Jim KM, no, I'm going to do this as JSON waste site. And I'm going to submit that. That was successfully added. I'm also now going to go off and I'm going to do a different one. Just do a single over here. And let me clear that so that you get rid of those guys. I'm now going to take those hazardous waste sites, and I'm going to do a single one. Pick one of them that are over here, and do exactly what I just did before, but this time I'm going to do it as a KMZ. And down here, I'm going to make it Jim KML waste single, so we know what to look for, and I'm going to add that one in there as well. So what you're seeing is the ability to go off and use all that really hard-earned, hard work that you've done in building all those GIS layers and begin to push it out, share it to other people. And let's take a quick look at it here in the Google Earth and refresh that. Scroll on down here and find my training event. Find that map context, and down there we've got Jim's KML single, we've got Jim's JSON waste, and over here we've got Phil's did a hazmat JSON as well. So we're starting to build from two different organizations a shared set of data. Where I want to go now is back over here to this spot-on response. Let's go back to the main listing here, and want to take my training event. Come back here, and I've got JSON. We know already that we don't see JSON. We saw that before, but actually, take that back. These are features. So I can come off here and take this JSON, and what it does, before it sent me off to the ArcGIS Online, Spot-on Response can recognize JSON. It doesn't know what to do with it, but here at least I have all that data. There are all the hazardous waste sites that we looked at before, and because it's in a JSON format, it comes out here looking ugly. Somebody has to work on making that a little bit better, but nonetheless, we've moved the data back and forth. Now, here though, Jim's single waste site, if I come over here and hit display, I should have done more of these than that one, and come back to, where the heck are we here? That may very well be it right there. All right, now that I at least have it, let me try this again. I'm not finding it. I should have done a few of them so that I could find it. We won't waste time on that. We'll do that one again. So, features. Let's come back here to the connector. Do a couple more feature components to it. Clear that one off. And we've got different ways that I can use features. First of all, there's my training event. Always have to associate it. Feature select. This time I'm going to do Esri census. And to see the census, I have to zoom in here. And I'm going to come out here and say, you know what, I'm interested in who's around this area. So I'm going to pop those up. Those are all my census points. I am going to send them out as features. I'm going to do this one. Actually, I'm going to do this one as a KMZ so that maybe you can see it on one of those other applications. Over here, I'm going to do dim census KML and submit that off of there. That's shared. Let's come off and do a different one, though. Let's close that and clear that. Come back a little bit. And what do we have? Let's try this one just to give you some illustrations. I want to select some features. This time what I'm going to do are the wastewater treatment plants. And let's do dams. And this time, though, I'm going to use buffer. So I can do a point, I can do a line, and I can do a polygon. I'm going to do this one, and I'm going to say I am interested in any dams within 100 miles of this particular incident. Clicking on that, I go out, do my thing. I've got 3 of those. If I click on features, I can do those as JSON. And I'm going to say, Jim Dams, 100 miles. So I've now shared that information out there. Let's play through one more little scenario here. Clear those guys all off. And let's come back to this area. And we've got a little earthquake fault that we're working on. And if I go back to that training event, select some features, and this time it will be wastewater treatment plants. And I'm going to do a buffer, and I want to do 5 miles around a line. And I'm going to just trace this as a earthquake fault. It's going to go across there, down there, down there, and down there. And what I end up with is my buffer showing me all the wastewater treatment lines that are associated with that fault. So all those different components allow you to be able to, as a GIS manager, and over here I'm going to say 5 mile, what were they, waste. As a GIS user or analyst, you could be interacting with the operations managers who are going to be wanting to know this kind of information. They're going to be less attracted to the idea of getting all the wastewater treatment plants that you have, and rather they want to see the wastewater treatment plants that are relevant to their particular emergencies. And here's, I didn't refresh that. And those of you who know ArcGIS Online, you can refresh this set this to refresh automatically. I did not do that so that we could control it a little bit better. But what you're doing as a GIS analyst is being able to follow what's going on in the event by seeing the incidents that are unfolding. You're able to bring up information. And here we have all those new things, the 5 mile waste, the 100 mile dams, all those other components. Let's jump over to spot on response. Come back here, do a quick refresh of that, find our training event. And again, I've got lots more of these. Let's go off and let's try. You see this little indicator there says it's supposed to be a KML. Let's see whether we can. Oh, yes, there we go. We got our census points from around there. So that was one that came out of a map server, was able to be created as a KML, and we have our individual census points associated with that. Want to do one last thing, since I lost that one wastewater treatment, hazardous waste site, did these earlier. and I couldn't find that, but I did want you to be able to see what happens here. It brings up all the different waste sites that are there, and I can go off and get the information that was associated with those waste sites. Because it was a KML, and it was able to be identified, brought into this tool, came out of my ArcGIS layers, shared through XchangeCore, and able to be delivered out to my tool set here. And I'm going to come up here and let's set this up. Because as I suspected, these last two components, they're important enough for a whole session. We'll do that next time. Because what we're going to do is show you how any of that information that comes out of those layers you can put into My Content in ArcGIS Online, and thus have access to it for any map that you're working with any point into the future. And then finally, how we can use those features that are coming out of ArcGIS Online to create incidents. You can practice, you can play with this yourself. Up on the website right now is our guide to ArcGIS Online interactions through the connector. Allows you, just go to to XchangeCore.org, go to the XchangeGeo site and the documents and training. You'll see that up there now. All the instructions that we've been looking at here, so between now and the next time, you can play with it if you like. And since we are actually at our time period, aren't we? Let me open the microphone, see whether anybody has any questions, comments, training, thoughts, or anything about anything.
Tim, this is Maggie at EERI.
Yes.
So we've been trying to play along a little bit, and we've brought an ArcGIS Online map into the connector, but I don't see anywhere a URL that we can use to test out with credentials to bring in other incidents. Okay,
you could go on to your CalOES using that username and password for CalOES to take a look at that one. I will send you the one to this training site if you like, but everybody should be using their real one to play with to see the incidents that are on there and be able to do it.
Okay.
But that's a good point for next time, though. I will, since people will have a chance to take a look at this, what I'm going to do is publish the link, and maybe we can get some more interaction going next time as well. Good thought.
Thanks.
Anybody else? No? A lot to go through in an hour. Far easier to do than it is to say. So download the user's guide, play right along, and we'll encourage you to join in next time. And we'll go through those two more things about how you move the information into your ArcGIS Online My Content, and also how you create incidents from features. And then we'll have sort of a general open session. Yes, I will publish some more URLs and give some access, and maybe we can get multiple people playing along, sharing their information out on a couple of incidents. So appreciate all of you tuning in today, and look forward to playing more hands-on next week. So thanks, everybody. And Phil, thanks for participating and pushing information in as well.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks very much. Have a good couple weeks.